The Ju-88 bomber is absolutely insane. I've been using this thing for a couple of matches just to try out how effective it actually can be, and trust me, the thing is completely broken and DICE are going to have to do something about it because for several reasons it's ruining the experience for a lot of players. Now, I'm not against an air vehicle or a ground vehicle being very powerful. Personally, I think it's actually quite good. You want the enemy team to work together to be able to take it out, but sometimes there has to be a limit, and the Ju-88 is not only super effective against infantry and tanks, it's also very good against air vehicles. On top of that, it takes very little skill to use, and you can be flying around in up to 5 of these on certain maps. Fiel, 652, 5 planes per team, and these things will just keep a map completely locked down. In addition to that, you can also have 2 gunners on the back of this thing. They will take out essentially anything that's chasing you. There are things that will counter it, like a Mosquito that's upgraded is very, very effective at taking one of these down, and you can also do the same with Spitfires if you're fairly clever with the way you attack them. But as you can tell from the background, if you get into this rear gunner seat and you shoot at a Spitfire that's close to you, you'll kill it in around 2 seconds. That's just ridiculous, considering the Spitfire is designed to take the bombers out of the sky in this game, the Mosquito as well. I'm not really too sure what DICE were thinking with this, because surely testing the bombs, upgrading the Ju-88 and testing all those bombs at once, I think it's 38 bombs you can have in one run, would be a good idea. As you can tell from this gameplay, you can smash everything with a very simple bombing run. You also have the third person reticle, which I don't think should be in the game. Many people will look at that and think, well, it makes sense, at least you can see where you're firing, but the fact that it is so accurate beneath you removes the need for you to use the actual zoom reticle, and I think using the zoom reticle is slightly more difficult because you have to then work out where your plane is. That's a personal thing for me. I think maybe it would make more sense not to have that reticle in third person, but that's just my personal opinion. Some people might think that it's necessary. It definitely makes the job a whole lot easier, and without that you'd have to be a little more accurate with your bombing runs by using the reticle. Of course, you wouldn't have that third person thing in real life. You wouldn't have the third person camera in real life at all. So maybe that for one would definitely change the way the planes play. The biggest thing though, the biggest problem that I have with the Ju-88, and it goes for all planes and all bombers on the game. You can fly straight out of your base on mainly operations, this tends to be, or Conquest Assault, where all the enemies are bunched up at the start, and do what you're about to see in the background. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's completely ridiculous. DICE have tried to patch this with that first patch that we got, the initial changes that allowed the plane to prevent you from dropping bombs. So you'd fly across the enemy spawn, you'd try and drop all your bombs, but you wouldn't be able to switch or drop them. So you'd have to do a quick 180, fly back, and just bomb them on the way back. So essentially, it's not really changed much at all. It's given the enemies a chance to scatter, but you're still going to take most of them out because the Ju-88 has 38 bombs. It's not as if you have a shortage of bombs to take these things out. Interestingly, one of my friends was telling me that this would actually be more realistic if they were more historically accurate. The Ju-88 could not carry this many bombs in the Second World War. This was far too heavy. They just wouldn't be able to fly with them. So maybe if DICE were to link to some historical accuracy, it's a very good reason for changing it. You don't have to say it's for balance. You can just say you wanted to change it to be more in line with what they saw in the Second World War, and also for balance reasons. People would completely understand, but it would also give it a bit of a backstory, which would be quite nice, because I do like it when they tie in some history to this game. It has been lacking in Battlefield 5, that's for sure, so this would be a chance to get some of it back. There's a couple of cool things you can do with the Ju-88. You can do it with a couple of the bombers, especially the Blenheim as well, but as the Blenheim has a problem with the third person camera that makes you really close to the back of the plane, I'm not really enjoying that plane much because I don't really like flying it first person either. But what you can do is if you have a bomber that you want to take out, and of course your front gun isn't that effective unless you upgrade it, and if you upgrade it you have to sacrifice a couple of your 38 bombs, you don't really want to be doing that. You can fly over the top of them and drop a bomb on them. Now, I've done it a couple of times. The first time I did it I blew myself up, so not exactly a perfect start, but the second time I did take them out. And that's where that third person reticle comes in handy, because you can just put it in front of them, or if you're close enough, directly on them. Bang. Out of the sky they go, and you get yourself a really nice kill. Now, I have got a Top Plays episode coming out soon with 2 of these in a row. In fact, it might have already just come out. I can't quite remember what order I've put them in. But anyway, 2 in a row someone takes these planes out with the bomb. So that's pretty cool. And I do feel as if this is like another only in Battlefield moment. We've been saying in BF5 that there have been more Battlefield moments than in Battlefield 1. I think that's definitely the case. BF1 was pretty good, it had some good moments in it, but Battlefield 5 definitely has a few more. And I think the machinery that we've got access to, the way DICE have got the game working, there's far more fun to be had with little moments like this. Another thing you can do, if you're flying this bomber and you are getting chased by a plane, one of the best tricks I've found you can do is actually slowing down really quickly, so either point upwards and lose your speed because you're gaining altitude and you're not accelerating, or you can just hold down S or back on your controller, whatever it is, and then slow yourself down. Jump into the rear gun, it would be the bottom rear gun, because that's the most effective, I believe, and then bang, you can shoot him out the sky. And you see me do it all the time in this video. It's incredibly effective, that rear gun, and I think that'll be another thing that DICE take a look at, because possibly they want to keep it really strong against infantry, which is fine. It's a bomber, you're supposed to be scared of these things, but at the same time you need to have some skill involved. So maybe reducing the amount of splash would be a good start, reducing the amount of spread on the bombs, similar to what they did with the Muromets, but the Muromets is still really strong. So changing it so you have to be more accurate with your bombs, essentially. And maybe having it so the resupply on the bombs from the resupply back in the base is slightly longer. So obviously you can't do as many bombing runs, there's more reprieve for the people on the ground, and that way everybody is a winner. You can still dominate from the air, but you have to be a little more careful with where you bomb. You have to decide to bomb the high value targets and the areas with a load of people on them, instead of just bombing any flag you want and hoping to pick up a big multi-kill. So possibly part of the problem is the fact that AA is too weak. Now I think that with the bombers this is definitely the case. If you're on a flat cannon and you're shooting a bomber, he's essentially just going to say, okay, that doesn't really hurt too much, and bomb you, or fly away, and then bomb you on the way back. I don't really feel as if the AA cannon is what you should be using to take down a bomber. It's more of a deterrent than an actual complete counter. What you should be using to take down a bomber is more than likely a fighter or a Mosquito, or a heavy sort of fighter like the Stuka or the Mosquito. I feel, in my opinion, that the AA cannon should be a deterrent. I think that is the whole point of an AA cannon, as a deterrent, because not only are you getting the planes away from you, you're not really ruining the plane combat. And I feel one of the biggest problems is in this game at the minute is you'll be having a dogfight with somebody, which is pretty fun in this game. I think the plane should be more balanced, but whatever, that's a different story. You're having a dogfight with somebody, and then someone on the ground gets on an AA cannon and ruins your dogfight because they shoot somebody and your wing snaps off, and then essentially you've lost that dogfight. What I'd much prefer to see is the AA cannon being used to prevent bombers bombing the ground. So how they do that, I couldn't say. It's a very difficult thing to try and balance, but I always feel as if a really strong AA is not the best way to counter air combat. The first thing you should be doing is looking at the way the bombers are hurting the people on the ground. So maybe removing a lot of that to make it a bit more balanced and make people have fun overall. You don't want to be ruining the people on the ground with bombs and then ruining the people in the air with AA guns. It just gets into a bit too much of a cluster. So to wrap up this video, 4,600 kilograms of bombs dropped on the enemy team will flatten them. That would be pretty obvious without even playing the game. Nevertheless, DICE have decided that it was a good idea to take it from the beta, put it in the main game, in my opinion, make it even stronger with the specializations, and then open a whole can of worms with how we should fix this in regards to balance. Personally, I think, as I said, reduce the splash, make it a bit more skill based, maybe remove the instant resupply and put a bit of a timer on it. And on top of that, make sure that the planes don't spawn in. Maybe you click on a plane, but you don't spawn in until the enemy team have had enough time to get out of their base and move around. That way, everybody wins. You don't get taken out of the sky because you don't have any weapons, but also the enemies get to some cover before you start flattening them with your bombs. That's my opinion on it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.